Good morning to all of you. Mr. Jerome Purve, Head of the Policy Division of the UITP, Mr. Ram Shekhar, our ED of DIMTS, Mr. Rajendra Kataria, the MD of KSRTC, Ms. Ekrup Kaur, MD of BMTC, distinguished ladies and gentlemen. I am indeed very happy to be here today morning and would like to congratulate DIMTS and the UITP India, as also the international representative of the UITP here, to bring all of you and us together here. Mr. Ram Shekhar was explaining to me that the audience includes bus manufacturers, people representing different think tanks, bus operators, the state road transport undertakings. I would hope that we have in India more city-specific undertakings, but the few cities that we have already the BMTC, the DTC managing director is here in the hall. Few other cities have their specific city road transport undertakings, and I'm told that as the two-day seminar progresses, more people would join in, and being the inaugural session, the people are just about stepping in from different parts of the country. It's very impressive to hear about this fact that this initiative to bring everybody together, holding the second annual seminar, I was not aware of it, that it happens now for the last 2 years. I think, as the previous speakers have said, that in the bus sector, there is so much knowledge to be exchanged between the government agencies and those who have the domain knowledge, be it bus operations, how to have more intelligent solutions, that too much of interaction is actually required in my view. And the smartness will lie that the cities and states which can pick up the nuances of the urban public transport and can integrate it into their bus operations within the cities, those cities will eventually try and do better. The previous speakers emphasized the importance of the public bus transport, so I have couple of pages, but I will be a little assorted here and there, look at the broader things and then come to some of the specific things, being a keynote address. But just to give the importance of public transport, I think if we just look at our behavior in the cities, that itself is linked to the quality of public transport that we have available. We are hearing about so many instances of road rage. Why do people get angry on the roads? Because cities have created a different type of life pattern. Now, you would have less time. The public transport is either developed or not developed. You're in a hurry, people are using personalized transport, and when they can't make to one place to another, they have all type of behavioral problems. Replace it with a well-established public transport system, where you know that your bus is going to come at this time, and with technology solutions, now if you know that your bus is delayed and you know from home itself that the bus is 10 minutes away, you will plan your things differently, and your interaction with your day in the city would be different. Some of us, and many of you have perhaps lived for short or long intervals abroad, and in the European cities where the bus transport is developed better, or the public transport is developed better, you can fairly plan your day in a manner. You also systematically allocate a good part of 1 hour, 1 hour 15 minutes maybe in the morning and 1 hour 15 minutes in the evening. But then you know that that dedicated 1 hour is not a frantic search at discomfort, unease, and things like that, and you do the travel. Now, how do you reach there is the question, and should we all be getting worried? I think we have to be very, very worried, because those who study macroeconomics, and many of you are in now middle stroke senior positions of responsibility, it is the cities only which are producing a lot of wealth for any country, be it India, be it Europe. You might know that in France, I used to know that 1/3 of the GDP of France, which is one of the G7 countries, used to be produced from area around Paris, the Ile-de-France. In India, Bombay and areas around Mumbai, Bangalore and the area around Bangalore, Delhi and the area around Delhi, they produce significantly large amount of GDP. Now, that is because cities are more efficient producer of goods and services. So in the coming years, as you all know, that in India we are moving towards this urbanization, and therefore more and more people in the cities, and therefore the need for a public transport system. Having said that, and having mentioned about the importance of public transportation, what is required is actually appropriate policies and we need to actually convince everybody. Now, I am sitting at a senior civil service position within the government of Delhi, but still this public transport is a subject where every time you need to actually interface with the decision-making authority, and you have to be persuasive, because leaders, political executives, civil service executive, they are not still aware of they are kind of aware, but it hasn't received the priority and the attention that it needs. So far, even if we talk of our Association of Road Transport Undertakings in India, we'll talk of the State Road Transport, Association of the State Road Transport Undertakings. But since last 10, 15, 20 years, when cities have gained in population very much and the economic activity has boomed in India post-91, there is actually need for dedicated city operations. And city operations are entirely different than the state operations actually. In state operations, my personal view is that once the bus fare is fixed and the buses are available, more or less you would do it in a, you will recover your costs also, unless the state government puts restrictions that you can't increase the fares. But city operations are not like this. I mean, you have a fare structure which should be affordable to poor people, to rich people. You have to run the service in the morning 5 o'clock, you have to run the service at 11 o'clock. Whereas in the government side, if I have opposite to me the chief executive who's running the bus operation, he will say, well, I need this much money from the budget. And I as government will say, no, your operation is not efficient, and therefore I'm not going to give you this money. Now this is repeating in every city. Now in some cities, they're just hearing it and then no attention is being paid to it. So what do? We can't leave it like that, because the quality of life and I would say that when I look at any city, I feel that a city has 3, 4 very important things. If a city doesn't have sewerage system, it's not going to function. If it doesn't have water supply, so water supply, sewerage, educational facilities, health, roads. These are kind of recognized that any city should have that. But an efficient urban public transport, is there so much attention in every city? Not so much. In India, we have talked in metros, Delhi, Mumbai, Bangalore, Madras, but you talk of cities like, I come from Jammu and Kashmir. There are cities like Jammu, Kathua, Meerut, Bulandshahr, Nagpur. What kind of urban transport systems are there? They're not so developed. So this is a huge amount of work in front of all of us who gets concerned about this subject, and therefore a subject which was relevant already 10 years ago, but it's good that we recognize it on day-to-day basis now, and I think great that we should all take forward our work from here and see that how public transport can evolve in India. Fortunately, there have been good programs of the government, as you know, those who are associated with the government. The JNNRU program of the government of India, which was implemented in the last 5, 10 years, brought about a big policy change to give push to the urban transport in India. Now, that has triggered this bus induction into cities and quality bus induction into cities, which I think has been a great news. It has resulted in some capacity building. Organizations have come up, and more should happen. The current program, which replaced the JNRU now, the Smart City program and the Amrut, some of you might be aware, it has relatively more emphasis on other sectors of urbanism, but there is a window for the urban transport as well, a smaller window. But it's also to be expected now that urban transport, since the state governments provide it and the city administrations have to provide it, they are the ones who have to show enthusiasm, rather than only expecting perhaps the federal government to be providing support in this direction. Having said that, yes, you all heard the representative. Fortunately, the previous speakers, one spoke specifically on behalf of, not specifically, that represents the Bangalore City Transport Corporation, and we had Mr. Kataria, who spoke more about the Kerala operations. The importance of technology and how the technology will be made possible. It's all there, so I'm not going to speak too much on it, but I feel that every 6 months, every quarter, every road transport undertaking or any government organization should really be making now plans. And I think there are suppliers in India of this technology, the GPS systems to put the timetables on the bus stops, and all that has to happen so that the urban transport works in a better manner. There were some interesting figures that were mentioned over here. I didn't know this comparison, that the Indian Railways carries less passengers than the total number of passengers carried by the Association of Road Transport Undertakings, which is itself very interesting. But the lesson that the takeaway from this is the following: for policymakers and those who will interact with policymakers to change the policy. In Delhi, for example, we have a well-developed metro. There are only about 7,000 buses operating in Delhi with the DTC and the cluster buses. The metro is doing about 2.5 million passenger trips every day. The bus system is still doing about 4.5 million passenger trips a day. So, if you look at the investments in the bus sector in the last 2, 3, 4, 5 years, they are not as huge. So somehow the public policy has got convinced that you could make investments of thousands of crores for the metro systems. But when investments, even at a slightly lower level, are required for the urban bus operations, there is more debate, and somehow the other collectively system has been up until now less forthcoming. But you look at the contribution of the bus system, as I just gave the figures, 4.5 million being carried by the Delhi's bus system, and 2.5 million or so being carried by the metro system. Now, so therefore, how do you design your fare structures and how do you get more money for the buses? This has also to be understood. Some people, in my opinion, naively believe that you don't need to spend money from the public budget into the city urban bus operations. If there are cities and if there are organizations which have made this possible, I think that should be a subject of discussion for an hour or so in a seminar like this, so that cross questions can take place, and those who can't run that, they learn from them. But having said that, I think another thing is there, that while you might need some budgetary support to run an urban operation, if the total expenditure is 100 in a city bus operation, and let's say 20 is the contribution coming from the taxpayers' money, the remaining 80 that you are getting, or whatever 20 is coming from the public taxpayer, the public sector undertakings and the city operations, the units that are running that, they have to see that whether all that is required to render their operation efficient is happening within the organization or not happening within the organization. I think, considering that a lot of this has been driven by the public sector in Indian cities, there are inefficiencies and they need to be addressed. There would be land parcels lying vacant, there will be some built up space lying vacant, there would be possibility of an area to be developed for a commercial or a profitable operation. So considering that the financial resource is not that much available, the bus organizations and the authorities which are running these operations have to have this entirely composite approach, so that not a single penny or not any asset is going waste. And how to do this thing? This we have to look at the experience, either learn on our own through reading papers, or quickly have interchange and exchange with the city operations within India. And since the UITP is giving an opportunity to also, it was nice to know about their programs, seminars, and discussions that they organize around the year. Look at the global experiences, because our needs and requirements in India are not going to be any different road requirements in China, the requirements in other Asian countries. If we take for granted that yes, European cities have already developed, that they have a well-established system. So there we are. But even when we talk of Europe, we were a group of people, about 10, 12, 15 senior civil servants, 3 years ago, through Ministry of Urban Development, Government of India, taken to different French cities to see how their urban transport operations are being run. Each of the mayor there, and the main biggest occupation and engagement is this urban transport and how to make the city run properly. So if that is what the mayors and their political leaderships are doing, similar thing is required in Indian cities. And since a lot of role is played in this direction by the public sector executives in India, we have to engage with the, as I'm repeating, with the government and others to make sure that our operations are becoming more and more efficient. There are issues relating to procurement in buses. See, public sector procurement is not easy. It is tricky everywhere. The European Union and the European Commission, people write papers and papers on how public procurement should occur. When it comes at global level, one country would like that you buy things from this country only, whereas the international organization will say, no, you give opportunity to every country and you cannot have only India buying things from India, and things like that. When it comes to lower levels like this, I am actually keen to see how Karnataka, for example, managed to add Volvo into their operations. When you procure buses as public entity, bus A, bus B, not very easy to compare. On the other hand, public authorities are bogged down by L1 and you must procure through the L1 route. Now, I think some attention and some discussion which can come from the Association of the Road Transport Undertakings in India, look at the global experiences, look at experiences within India, that how cities and authorities which have traversed this and crossed this thing, that has to be learned and imbibed by others, so that when money becomes available, we are not delaying it for 6 months, year, and more than that to procure the buses. There's also another problem of supply of buses in India. I had some figures that China was making some dash number of buses every year, whereas in India we are making much less. I'm not remembering the exact figure, but the figure looked like the ratio of about 1:5 or 1:6. So eventually, with population of India booming and urban population growing, there is from the manufacturer side also, I may use the word responsibility or the possibility, because the private sector will invest if there is a demand, but the demand will get generated in case the supply is there, so it's interrelated. You can promote the supply and you can promote the demand, so both are there. But the fact of the matter is that the bus technology and the quality buses have to be manufactured in India or in the societies India-like, and that is, and when the induction of those quality buses takes place into the public sector, urban transport operations, that's when the bus journey or the daily commuters ride is going to become comfortable. So I would urge the manufacturers and others inside this hall to look at the future of this operations and accordingly plan technology induction, plan to have quality buses into the systems, so that we can hope that better urban bus transportation operations are there. I'll close with mentioning a little bit about what's happening in Delhi, which is the capital of India, and we have a new government for the last 1 year. Public transport is high on the agenda. The government announced in its manifesto that, as I mentioned just now, that we have about 7,000 buses, and it was it's a articulated goal that we will add 7,000 more buses in the next 5 years. Now, last 1 year, there have been, the work is going on making tenders, and whether you should add through the cluster bus route, or you should buy through the DTC, or there is any other third option. Delhi government, the budget was made yesterday. Some of you might have read in the morning papers. So for the transport sector, it envisages induction of 3,000 buses in this year, that is 2016-17. 1,000 buses to be planned through the DTC procurement, another 1,000 buses through the cluster bus system. Since the seminar is just about the beginning today, I hope somebody will speak more to you about the cluster bus operation that DIMTS, whose CEO is sitting on the dais and one of the organizers for this seminar. The DIMTS has been running this operation for Delhi government. Everybody, I myself personally, because I'm associated with the sector and with the organization, very satisfied with this model that is working. I'm also gathered that the gross cost model, which the DIMTS has utilized for introducing cluster buses in Delhi, is among the global best practices in urban bus transport operations, which therefore is good news, because here the investor is bringing the bus, he's getting money after a competitive bid, that he will get this much for providing this much bus supply to the organization. After that, the frequencies, the routes, whether the bus is running empty or full is the responsibility of the public entity or the procuring entity, and therefore we can hope that, and another hope that the outcome is therefore that you can have the bus operation the way you have designed it, morning, evening, frequencies, and things like that. So out of the 3,000 buses, I mentioned that 1,000, the plan is to procure through the DTC, add 1,000 more to the through the cluster bus system, which is already in implementation in Delhi. And another 1,000, it has been assessed, it was mentioned by the about the taxi services now gaining in city. The UITP India chief, Ms. Kaur, mentioned that how suddenly in the last few years this calling taxis has taken up in a big way. Similarly, there is a scope. People feel that if there are buses within the city, the quality buses which are really high quality, and they're running from place A to place B, and maybe the private sector can play a direct role in that. So there's a plan to introduce 1,000 more buses through this model, of which the details are being worked now, and introduce those buses. In addition to that, of course, IT enhancement in the bus operations in Delhi, that's high on the agenda. Cities have problems of safety, so therefore the GPS systems, the cameras in the buses, all that are also becoming part of the general urban bus specification now. But as a city, we are moving in that direction. And as far as Delhi is concerned, surely there would be a lot for us to learn from the think tanks who are dealing with bus systems. Our interaction with the manufacturers, our interaction with other policy experts, and I would, in as much as request the participants who have come from other places to go back with learnings from here. I'm also happy that this seminar takes place in Delhi, and we have our association with DIMTS and other people, that whatever as a city we can learn from your discussions and your experiences, we will integrate them into our policy to make city bus operations and city transport more interesting, enjoyable, and a good daily experience for the commuters. Thank you so much.